Hi, I'm Maddie,
And I'm Abigail, and this is
two writers.
Many Wrongs. Today's episode, we have two writers, a lot of education.
So much education, so many options.
And is it necessary? Like, did we waste hundreds of thousands of dollars or was it useful to us? As our listeners know, Maddie and I met through our graduate program at the University of Tampa, where we got our MFA or our Master's of Fine Arts in creative writing. And I think it's important to say that Maddie and I came into the program at two very different times. And you really had more knowledge about the program because you were an undergrad at UT
Hmm.
and had volunteered in there. When I came into the program, right after undergrad, I kind of panicked about going into the real world. And so I applied to a bunch of graduate schools, but I really didn't have any publications to my name. I really didn't have anything to kind of help me. So I got rejected from everywhere. And it was the first time in my life that I had been academically rejected. Like I had been rejected in other areas of my life, but I had never, every college I applied to for undergrad, I got accepted to. Like it was the first time that I had struggled academically. So I took a year off and focused on my writing. I wrote the first draft to my first novel. I got, two publications under my belt for short stories and was able to reapply. And I chose the University of Tampa because it was the only place that accepted me. So I really went into this with more desperation than I think that you did. Like you actively chose this program, correct?
Right. Yeah. So my story was a little different. After I graduated college, I got married
Hmm.
to my high school sweetheart. It was not a happy marriage,
Hmm.
and it ended very poorly, and I was very broken, and I didn't know who I was, and I didn't know what I was doing with my life because my whole life had revolved around him.
Hmm.
I'd wanted to go to grad school after I graduated, but because I needed to
Hmm.
help him with his green card, I had to get like a big girl job, which was
Yep.
the worst possible thing I could imagine was staying in my hometown and getting a corporate job, which is
Yeah.
exactly what I did because I
Hmm.
had to. And then he left, and I didn't know who I was or what I wanted to do with
Hmm.
my life. And so I slowly started healing myself by getting back into my writing
Hmm.
and kind of like rebuilt myself with my writing. And then I finally said, I want to go to grad school for my writing. I
Hmm.
want to do this for myself. It's selfish. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like, I don't need to, but I need to. And
Yeah.
so it's the first time that I really did something that was just for me.
Hmm.
And I picked the University of Tampa because I went there for grad school. I mean, I went there as an undergrad, and I actually interned at the MFA program, like when it very
Hmm.
first started. And the director at the time, when I was interning, was also, I did an independent study with him, and that was Jeff Parker,
Hmm. Lovely
and
man.
lovely man. And
Hmm.
he wasn't the director by the time I ended up
Hmm.
going back, but he was one of the faculty members. So it was kind of
Hmm.
like really cool to come back and work with Jeff Parker again, and go to this program that I had seen like on the outside as
Hmm.
an intern, and I dreamed like, oh, that'd be so cool to hang out with these authors, and then finally getting to go back there and see these people that I had worked with as an intern uh,
Hmm.
was it was very magical, and it was very healing for me to go
Hmm.
back and be like, I'm doing this for me, and it's something I've always wanted to do.
Yeah. There's a couple things I want to touch on that you said. One, I love that you said to get to hang out with these authors because for me, grad school, even though my undergraduate degree was in creative writing, grad school was the first time in my life that I felt like an author. Like sitting down at lunch with our cohort and with our peers, and each of us is talking about, oh, well, I'm working on this novel or this collection of short stories, or oh, yeah, like I'm in this round of edits. And it really for me was the first time in my life that I really felt like I, number one, belonged there. And it was the first time that I felt like my writing was really being taken seriously as a possible career option and not just a hobby.
Oh yeah, the not just a hobby thing. I think
Hmm.
that was one of the best things about going to an MFA program was you walk in the room and you are, because you are here, you are a writer. And nobody
Yeah.
questions that. They're just like, you are a
Hmm.
writer. You're here. Like
Hmm.
you don't have to prove it. Because it always felt like, I'm a writer. Oh yeah, how many books have you published? It's like,
Yes. Oh my gosh,
well,
exactly. Yeah.
but there
Yeah.
was like,
No.
you're a writer. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, so that was one of the things I wanted to talk about. And then the other thing that you talked about is the notion that like it didn't make sense to anybody else, but like you knew you had to do it for you. And even though I have a really great support system in like my extended family and things like that, my mom and my godfather were pretty much the only people who really supported me going to grad school. And my husband Michael, he's always happy for me to do whatever it is that makes me happy and whatever. But I don't necessarily know that he like got it in the
Mhm.
way that my mom got it. Um, and same with my dad and my brother and just everybody else. They were very like, yeah, like that's great for you. I know you like school. And I think my mom was the only person who was like, no, you're going to be a writer. Like you are doing this to help your writing career.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side of that coin, I had a lot of people in my life who were like, so how are you going to make money? And like why do you need to do this for your writing? And I almost started justifying it to myself because of them as, oh, well, I'm doing this because I want to teach at the university level, and you have to have a master's to teach at the university level. So that kind of became like my justification, even though I was doing it for myself. I was doing it for my writing because
Yeah.
I felt really listless after undergrad. And even though I had written that first draft of the novel, I had this manuscript and I didn't know what to do with it.
Hmm.
Um, but I did. I felt myself justifying to people when they were like, "Well, how are you going to make money? How is this going to work out for you?" And I love teaching at the collegiate level. Like it's great. I'm glad that I'm able to do that. But that's why I started telling people why I was getting my master's because it was easier for me.
So I had a similar thing where I always felt like I had to change the reason I was going to
Hmm.
grad school depending on the audience.
Yeah.
Like even when on the first day of grad school they asked why you joined the program, I gave a different answer than I just gave you
Oh,
because
yeah.
the answer I just gave you was the truth. Like I
Right. Of course. Yeah.
my marriage had broken me and I didn't know who I was
Yeah.
anymore. And so I
Hmm.
wanted to do something that was I wanted to be me. Like I wanted to figure out who that
Yes.
was. But
Yep.
I felt like that's kind of a lot to tell a room full of strangers.
Stand up in the
Well,
auditorium the very
my
first
husband
day.
my husband left me and I don't
Right.
know who I
Yeah.
am
Hmm.
anymore. I felt
Yep.
like that's a lot. So what
That's
I
a
ended
lot.
up saying, and this is also true, it's
Hmm.
partially, is similar to you. Like I had written
Hmm.
two-thirds of a novel, the first
Hmm.
of my novel I'm writing now, and I
Hmm.
was lost. I'm like, I don't know
Yeah.
how to finish this. I don't know what I'm gonna do
Hmm.
when it's done. I don't even know
Yeah.
if I've written it correctly. And so I kind of wanted to like go back and kind of
Mhm.
be around people that could help me with that. Um, and but
Yeah.
I would justify it too because I worked a full-time job while I was in my MFA program.
Hmm.
And so I was a I think I was a team lead at the time. I was like in a managing role. And so like my manager was like, I don't understand why you're doing this. So you're gonna leave? Are
Yeah.
you gonna quit? My parents were like, you're not gonna quit your job, are you? Because you have a 401k and
The stability.
uh, and then
Yeah.
it's like, you won't make that much money as a professor. And I was like, I
Hmm.
know. And I'm not
Yeah.
doing that. I've not quit
Hmm.
my job. I'm working. Um,
Right.
but
Yeah.
but
Hmm.
this is something that's purely selfish. And it was
Yeah.
just for me. And I mean, it's not that my parents were like unsupportive. It's just that
Of
they were
course.
also like,
Yeah.
that's great, honey. You're not quitting your job, right? And I'm like,
Right. No. Yeah.
I can't. I literally cannot. Like I
Right.
have a rent to
Hmm.
pay. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I want to point out a couple things about our program specifically and like what kind of made it unique because I do think that's really important to talk about. So we attended something called a low residency program, which basically means that we were only on campus for 10 days in January and 10 days in June. And then everything else was done one-on-one with our mentor online. And basically we would have like monthly check-ins, but you're doing the work kind of in your own time. And so, because of that, our program had a lot of older individuals. Like we were some of the youngest people there. They also had a lot of veterans, which I think really helped make the program unique in that way. Um, but it was really unique just because when I would tell people that I was in grad school, they were like, "Oh, what classes are you taking?" And I was like, "Well, I'm not really
Yeah.
taking any classes per se. Like it's very like mentor driven. It was almost like an independent study for 2 years, you know?
Hmm.
Um, and it is I don't ever want to say that I regret our program because so many wonderful things came out of it. But if I had to do it again, I do wish that I had attended a more structured program,
Sure.
um, just for like one, my own learning style. And two, I think that other graduate programs have a more well-rounded aspect to it. So our graduate program helped my writing so much. I mean, I am 1,000 times better writer because of that program that I was in. However, I as a teacher, like I would have loved to have more like literature background. I would have loved to have more solid, like this is how you write a query letter. This is how you like these are the different avenues of publishing. Like I feel like there's a lot of information that we kind of missed out on because we were in
Hmm.
that low residency program.
Yeah, that is one of the hardest parts about about a residency program is I feel
Hmm.
like there wasn't really a lot of teaching on how to teach. So if you were
Yeah.
going to an MFA program to teach, low residency probably isn't the route because you're not getting that experience of teaching. Because I know a
Hmm.
lot of programs that aren't low residency, like you are actively teaching classes as
Right. They
part of your
require you to be a
curriculum.
graduate assistant. Yeah.
Hmm. Where we
Hmm.
didn't have that. But at the same time, I couldn't have done a
Hmm.
program that wasn't low residency because I was at
Yep.
work. I actually had to use all of my paid vacation time to go to residency. Like I did not have any
Wow.
vacation time or sick time
Hmm.
for 2
Yeah.
years. Well,
Yeah.
I changed jobs
Hmm.
after the first year because
Hmm.
of that. It was so hard. I got a
Yeah.
job that had open PTO.
Nice.
So,
Well, and I think that that's, I guess my first piece of advice to listeners who are contemplating going into a graduate program is one, obviously think about what you're hoping to get out of it. And I think a low residency program is really great for the people. The number of people that I heard say, I have had a story in me for so long, and I am finally at a point in my life where I'm, done raising my kids or have retired from this really high stress job or whatever that like I can take the time for me. But I also love that like you were a young professional who was also pursuing a passion. And I think that that structure was really wonderful for your situation.
yes.
Whereas if I had taken the time to evaluate what I was hoping to get out of a graduate program, I probably would have selected something different.
Right. Like for me, I had a job. I had a
Hmm.
career that I enjoyed well enough. Like it was something I
Hmm.
could see myself doing for a long time.
Yeah.
And but I'd always seemed like I knew that I would want to write books. I never thought it would be a full-time gig,
Yeah.
but it was something I always wanted to do as well as being a technical writer.
Hmm.
So for me, it made sense to also make room for that. But it was really hard to work
Yeah.
40 hours a week in a managerial type role
Yeah.
and also be doing grad school.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
and
Well,
starting a new relationship at the same time.
I know that's so crazy. It's always so funny to me. So we are almost like 2 years apart in the program, even though we're the same age, just because of our different journeys there.
You're
So
5 days older than me.
yes, that's very true. I am old.
That you have 5 days more wisdom than I do.
And I use it very well. Um, no, but
Teach me, senpai.
um, I was graduating. So your first semester was my last semester.
Yep.
And the program, it had been running for, I want to say 10 years. Um, when I joined, I'm pretty sure, I think that I was the 20th cohort because they would do two, every year. And so I think it had been running for 10 years. And the number of people that I had say to me, "Oh my gosh, your cohort has just breathed life into this program." Because we were one of the biggest cohorts that they had ever had. Generally, they accepted anywhere between like 6 and 10 people. And my cohort had, I think, 15. I'm pretty
Um,
sure. Which was, I mean, it was a big deal. And we lost a couple people along the way, things didn't work out, whatever. Um, but they just kept saying like, "Oh my gosh, you have breathed so much life into this program." And by the time that you came around, your cohort was back down to only maybe 6 people. And then I personally don't think it was because of the pandemic, but I think through a series of things, the program eventually died,
it
unfortunately.
did.
And go ahead.
I want to correct you and say that I think there
Mhm.
was 12 of us.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay,
It
cool.
was
Good.
bigger, but not
Okay. Yeah.
as big, but it was
Yeah.
bigger. And then it
Well,
started
and
to
that's
dwindle after us.
yeah. Okay. Okay. That's really good to know because since I left, I didn't really know, like when it was announced that the program was ending, I was shocked.
Yeah. It
And
was,
it's,
you could see it coming though if you were in
mhm,
the program because it was
yeah.
slowly.
Hmm.
I remember like before they announced it, the next cohort that came in
Hmm.
was one person,
What?
was one.
Wow. Well, and it's really disappointing because it didn't end because it lost accreditation or because it wasn't a good program or for any of those reasons, it ended because there wasn't enough interest in it because the university was not advertising it in the way they could have because the people who were managing it at that point, there had been turnover and it was not getting the same love and attention that it deserved and needed to survive. And so,
Mhm.
again, the 2 years that I had were very, very different from the 2 years that you had.
Yeah, the 2 years I had was things were falling apart at the seams.
Hmm.
I think like the first semester, the first two were fine, but then
Yeah.
the next two were like things got real weird.
Hmm.
Um, and it was really sad to see it not be as loved as it was, especially as someone
Hmm.
that I had interned when
Yeah.
I was an undergrad and I'd seen this program and I thought it was so cool and I loved what they were doing
Hmm.
and to see it just very slowly die was agony.
Yeah. Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about is that as an intern, um, like how much life did you see in the program? Was it new? Was it still building or was it like relatively well established when you were interning?
I feel like it was very new.
Okay.
I don't know if it I'm trying to think. So, do you remember what year you started? Like
Yeah, so
what?
I started June 2016 and I graduated June 2018.
Because I interned in 2012,
Okay. Yeah.
and I feel like it might not have been like brand new, but it was
Hmm.
new.
Yeah.
And so when I interned, it was huge. Like it was way
Hmm.
bigger than it was when I got in there. Like there were so many more people.
Yeah. When I look at the
Um,
alumni list, like they had like really good sized cohorts. So,
I think when I went there,
yeah.
it was a huge group. It was so
Hmm.
much smaller by the time I got there, but when I was an intern,
Hmm.
it was almost overwhelming how many people there were.
Yeah.
And we were all over the school. Like
Hmm.
we had more classrooms than we
Okay.
had in when I was there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Because we really just had like those 2 floors in Plant Hall that maybe, there's a handful of classrooms there and that was really it.
yeah, so they
Um,
had Plant Hall, but they had like a bunch of buildings in Sykes,
hmm.
and the business college. There's a
Yeah.
ton of different, and there's like a big like auditorium room in the center of Sykes where
Oh, yeah. We did have a couple lectures there.
there
Yeah.
was, but there was always
Yeah.
something there. And then we
Hmm.
had the theater that's across the street, Folk, I think.
Yeah. 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 We would do readings there.
There would
Hmm.
be events there too, readings.
Yeah.
They didn't do that when I was, I think it was being renovated when I was in grad.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, the Lectore series, we ended up having to do it in the art gallery my very last semester because Folk was being renovated.
Yeah,
And not
we
to get
did some in
too,
there.
yeah, not to get too into the weeds and like alienate our listeners in that way, but basically the structure of the program was in the 10 days that you were on campus. You were assigned a mentor. You would meet one-on-one with that mentor to talk about what the semester would look like for you. You would get a reading list. You would put together like a list of goals as far as your like writing and academic work went. And then you would also participate in workshops with
Yep.
that mentor. And generally, the workshops were like at most 4 students to one teacher. When I was there, when you were there, I know that they were even smaller. Um,
So it was bigger.
oh, it was bigger. Oh, wow. No. Okay. So when I was there, I think the biggest one that I had is that I think there were 5 students to one teacher.
Okay, because they tried to do something when I first came in and it was
Hmm.
awful.
Hmm.
So it was they would combine two mentors workshops
Oh.
and they would take turns teaching it.
Eesh.
And so I think we had 8 to 10 in a
Wow.
workshop.
That's a lot.
It was a
And you're
lot.
only, I mean, it's so hard. So you would submit work at the beginning of the semester, and your people in your workshop would read over it so that when it was your workshop day, everybody was supposed to come in prepared and like be able to have that. So I can't imagine having 10
It
that
was
you would then
awful.
have to go and prepare. And that, I mean, that's somebody getting workshopped since day one. Like there is no camaraderie building at that point.
No, and there definitely wasn't. And it was my first workshop experience was horrible.
Hmm.
I actually almost dropped out of the program because of how bad it was.
Wow.
Uh, I felt I was the only person that was writing sci-fi. Everybody
Hmm.
else was writing like contemporary literature,
Hmm.
and they were very like there was a couple like Hemingway wannabes
Ugh.
and very like pretentious.
Uh-huh.
And I went in there with my feminist sci-fi, and they're like they
What
just
is this? Yeah.
they ripped it apart, and
Hmm.
it
Yeah.
was it was awful. It was humiliating.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
hated it.
Which really just, I mean, we talked about this in the workshops episode, but it really just speaks to the ineptitude of whoever the mentor was that was running that workshop because no student should ever feel that way.
I mean, I definitely felt that way. The only person I felt like that got my work and said
Hmm.
anything that was valuable to me
Hmm.
was the mentor,
Wow. Yeah. It's a shame that they weren't able to
like
uh,
direct the
control.
conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, So I feel like we've talked about some of the negatives of like our particular program, but I do want to talk about some of the positives that came out of it as well because I'm really really glad that I did a master's program, even though it was not exactly the way that I would have loved, even though like there are some aspects that I think that I missed out on. It really helped my writing. It helped me be able to prioritize my writing, which I think is something that young authors struggle with a lot, is just prioritizing, like, hey, this is an important thing to help me move forward in my life. And I feel like being a part of a master's program, I was able to say to people, like, no, I have to write because I have an assignment due in 4 days. Um, so that was really beneficial. And then the mentors that I had in particular were really wonderful and really beneficial for me.
Yeah, I had most of my mentors were very good mentors,
Hmm.
and I got a lot out of it. It's just my last one was a very
Hmm.
bad mentor, and that it was my last one. It was my senior year, and it
Yeah.
was also the pandemic, so like it was a very
Hmm.
low note to end on.
Yeah.
Um, like I never got my cap and gown, and I'm
Mm.
still butthurt about that. I never got to
Yeah.
walk. Um, I
Hmm.
never got I got to do my reading on a Zoom call. And like
Oh,
I had dreamed of like getting to be on a stage reading my work. I'd never done that before. So I was like, that'd be so
yeah.
cool to have that opportunity. And I never got it.
Yeah.
So all that stuff is like something I'm really butthurt about. I know we're not doing the negative, but I just had to do that.
That's okay. Yeah.
My first 3 mentors, actually I had 2 mentors. I had
Hmm.
3 mentors in total.
Hmm.
One mentor I had twice. And
Okay.
the 2 mentors that I had were really wonderful. They got my
Hmm.
work. They understood what I was trying to do. They didn't
Hmm.
dismiss me because I was a science fiction writer.
Yep.
And they saw that they both were like, you write literary science fiction. And that was
Hmm.
very good to hear because that's how I'd always seen my sci-fi. Like people are like, oh, you write sci-fi,
Hmm.
so you write about like robots and laser
Right,
guns.
yeah.
And I was like, yeah, but there's so many books that are sci-fi that are very
Hmm.
clearly literary classics that we
Yes.
teach in school. And so
Hmm.
sci-fi can be literary. And so the fact that that
Yes.
seen in that way made me really happy because that's what I
Hmm.
wanted to write. So
Hmm.
having somebody who's published who I didn't say like, I want to write literary sci-fi. They're like, hey, so you write literary sci-fi. And it's like, oh my God, it was very
Yeah. Oh,
validating to hear that.
that's
And
so nice. Okay, so one of them was Jason. Who was the other one?
Jess Anthony.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
So I had her
yeah.
twice because
Hmm.
she really loved my work and she was the
That's
first
so
person
great.
who like I when I was an undergrad there was
Hmm.
nobody was writing genre
Yeah.
fiction
No.
and I was embarrassed to show my sci-fi
Hmm.
so I was
Yeah.
writing like contemporary fiction.
Well, in a lot of undergrad programs, almost dissuade students from
Right.
writing in genre, which sucks.
Right. So when I was writing in genre um when I was writing in genre and I had somebody who saw that and saw the value
Hmm.
of it for the first
Yeah.
time, that was really validating because I'd
Hmm.
always hidden the fact that I was a sci-fi writer.
Yeah.
It made me proud to be a sci-fi writer. And I'm like, yeah, I write sci-fi. Yeah.
That's so lovely.
And then of
Um,
course there's also the other positive aspects of it is I learned how to be confident in my writing because I really was not
hmm.
confident in my writing. I enjoyed writing, but I
Hmm.
didn't think I was a good writer. But then when I did my MFA program, although like that bad workshop aside,
Hmm.
I I had people come up to me and they're like, I don't usually like after the fact they of course they didn't say it's in the freaking
Of course they
class,
don't. Of course they
but they
don't. They
come
never
in
do.
afterwards and they're like, no, like
Uh-huh.
I really enjoyed your story and I don't like sci-fi. And that was really
Yeah.
validating to hear, like
Hmm.
that the people who don't usually read science fiction were seeing the value in it and
Hmm.
seeing that there was something special in my writing from classmates and teachers. And it really gave me that like extra oomph of confidence that I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I do have something
Yeah.
worth telling, a story worth
Hmm.
telling.
Yeah. Well, and the other positive for me is I thrive in academia. Like I loved being in school and I really felt the most comfortable when I was a college student because it was very clear. I had so much sense of purpose of like, this is what I am here to do. I'm here to get my degree. I'm here to take these classes. I have people who can tell me if I'm doing well or not doing well or whatever. Like college was really the only time in my life that I absolutely felt like I know what I'm supposed to be doing. And once I graduated, all of that went away. I mean, kids are told from so early, like, go to college, go to college, go to college, that once you graduate from college, you're like, okay, so now what? Like, what do I do with this degree? Um, and so my senior year of undergrad, I had one of my all-time favorite teachers. He was wonderful. His name was Russ Franklin, and I was actually in his comic book writing class, and I was
Oh my
talking to
God.
him. It was great. There were seven writers and seven artists, and we made three comics over the semester, and it was great.
I think I've seen those comics because you have them on
Yeah.
your website.
I do, yeah, yeah, yeah. But I was in office hours and I was like, Russ, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And he said to me, and he was like, you're gonna go to grad school. You are going to become a professor, and then you're going to audit classes, and you are going to be a student for the rest of your life, just like I am. And I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds incredible. Like, that is the life I want. I want to take college level classes as long as I possibly. I want to learn as much as I possibly can. Like, I want new experience. Like, I loved college. And so for me, the upside not only was getting to be back in that academic setting, but now I have the tools to be able to live in that academic setting.
Right.
And like, even though I'm teaching beginning level English courses and like on occasion I get to teach creative writing, I love it. I love getting to work with students. I love that it is a place of mistakes and discovery. It's not a place where you have to be perfect. And when I'm able to say to my students, like, hey guys, I'm trying to figure this out. Like, how would this lesson plan work for you? What do you think is, and to have that collaboration there, I wouldn't be able to do that or be where I am today if I had not gone to my graduate program.
It's true.
So outside of writing, it gave me the career that I didn't realize I always wanted.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's on the flip side of that was I thought about I because I had told people like I'm going so that I can
Hmm.
teach and at the academic at the sorry at the collegiate level.
Yeah.
And as I was going through the program and I was watching it fall apart and I was watching the
Hmm.
politicking going on with the English
Yes.
department and
Hmm.
it taught me that I didn't want that.
Yeah.
That I did not want to
Yeah.
be a professor because
Hmm.
I was at a job where I had changed jobs and I was at a
Hmm.
job where I was being respected and I was taken seriously and
Yep.
that helped build up my confidence as a person and like feel
Hmm.
like come into my own. Like I was getting confident in my writing, but I wasn't confident as a
Yep.
person. But this other job I had made me confident because I stepped into a leadership role. I eventually
Yeah.
became a director that was like
Hmm.
making departments and like being
Yeah.
respected by C-level executives in meetings.
Hmm.
And that gave me like a lot of a power and autonomy and seeing the way that academic world was going and how there was all this politicking and how these people who should have power just
Yes.
really didn't seem to have any
Hmm.
control over what was happening. It made me realize
Hmm.
I don't know that I want that. I want to work somewhere where I'm respected and that
Hmm.
I have. So it kind of helped me kind of figure out like what I wanted to do. And I always wanted to be in some way, at least have power over my own
Yeah.
work and what I'm doing.
Hmm. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, that has been one of the hard things. Like going into academia, I knew that adjunct professors do not get paid what we should get paid. That's just a fact of life. Most adjunct professors have to teach at multiple universities to pay the bills. I am lucky enough, am in a privileged enough position that have a husband who pays for most of our lifestyle. But I have four different jobs. Like, just that is the fact of where I live. And with the careers that I choose, they're not money makers. So I literally have four different jobs that I do. Um,
Yeah.
and it's still worth it to me. Like,
Yeah,
as dumb as that sounds,
not at all.
um, it is still very, very worth it to me to be able to go into the classroom and interact with students. And, you know, I have worked for a public university in the state of Florida, and I definitely felt the politicking more there because I worked there during George Floyd's murder, and
Oh,
my my university was the first university in the state of Florida to put out a statement that flat out said Black Lives Matter. They didn't kind of edge around it. They didn't, oh, well, we support all of our students, blah, blah, blah. Like our university president was like, no, Black Lives Matter. And our university felt the backlash of that, unfortunately, from the state and from people who did not agree with that. Um, but it was still a privilege to be able to work for that public university. And
right.
then when I ended my time working there, it was at the beginning of a lot of heavy book banning. And the books that I taught in my classroom had been banned which is just crazy to me that a college would have to ban books, but
Right.
um, the state of Florida is a scary place at times. And
Yes.
now I have the privilege, and I am really, really excited starting in January, in this new semester. I'm going to be teaching at a private university in Florida. And I'm super excited about that because I asked them and said, like, this is what I like to teach. Is that going to be a problem? And they said, as a private institution, like, we don't have to follow the same rules.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, so it's really great to kind of have that sense of freedom back to talk to my students about important issues and have discussions with them. Um, and again, it goes back to even though my particular graduate program did not give me exactly what I was looking for, it gave me enough of the skill sets. And most importantly, it gave me the credentials that I needed to
Yes.
get to where I needed to be. And then I was able to figure out the rest on my own. I mean, the amount of research that I have done on pedagogy that I didn't get as a student in grad school that I just learned on my own because I knew I needed it.
Yeah.
Um, but without a graduate program, I wouldn't have been able to do that.
Yeah, exactly. I
Hmm.
think an important thing when you're looking at possibly doing an MFA is thinking about what it is that you want from an MFA.
Hmm.
Because that's kind of going to tell you if you should even spend the money because you have to have a good
Hmm.
reason. For me, I needed to do something that was selfish and get away and
Hmm.
live another life and kind
Yeah.
of re-find out who I was. And you wanted to have the credentials
Hmm.
to teach. But if you're like, I just want to learn how to write, you don't have to pay an exorbitant amount of money
Exactly.
to go to an
Yes.
MFA program.
Yes, and that's the other thing. So, you were talking about you wanted to find out who you were. However, having known you for such a long time, you also wanted to be able to do that in a way that was going to give you confidence and credibility.
Yes.
And I think that there are a lot of people who maybe feel the same way who are able to join a writing group or are able to, sign up for masterclass and get a lot of that feedback there as well. So I think that, like you said, if you're just doing it to become a better writer, that's great. If you have the money, if you are going to, thrive in an academic setting, like that's awesome for you. But you don't have to. I think
Yeah.
is the important thing. Like there are so many other ways to improve your writing.
I don't want people to feel like, oh, I want to be a writer, but I can't afford an
Hmm.
MFA, so I'm never gonna be a writer. And that's
Yeah.
so not true. Like, there
Not
are
a single,
so many authors
not a
that do not go to
single
MFA.
author outside of Jason Ockert that we've interviewed has a master's degree.
I thought, um, I thought one of them did.
I
She had an undergrad.
Yeah. No. Vanessa has an undergrad in creative writing. Um, Pretty much everybody else either had a degree in journalism or in some other,
Right.
not equitable area of study, or just didn't have a college degree. And I
Also,
just,
how many
mhm,
people from our MFA program do you know that are published?
two, but they're both poets and they both independently published. I don't know a single person who has been able to, or even necessarily wanted to, go the traditional publishing route. Oh, that's not true. Brad is also published,
Okay.
but he's once again self-independent. I don't know if it's a small press independent, but yeah, not a single one of them that I know has done traditional publishing.
All right. So that's enough,
Hmm.
like, to
Yep.
show you that it's not
Yeah.
necessarily like,
Exactly. It's really not necessary at all. And when looking at other avenues of how to improve your writing, I am running the writing group at my bookstore right now. And I had a woman who asked me, she's like, hey, like, could you meet outside of writing group? And I was like, yeah, of course, not a problem. And she's 22 and just got her undergraduate degree in like media studies, basically,
yeah,
and said, like, I want to go to grad school, but I don't know how. Like, I don't know what the next steps are. And so we talked through like finding the program that works for you and trying to get publications to put on your resume and what your writing sample is going to look like and what your personal statement's going to look like. And all that different kind of stuff. Um, because she knows like this is what she wants to do. But in the meantime, she's joining our writing group and she's writing every day and like
yeah,
she's practicing her art. Um, until she gets to that graduate level.
yeah,
And there are people in the group who don't have any desire to uh, go to higher education, who are there and getting workshopped and submitting things and, doing the work that it takes to be a writer.
yeah. I think too, one of the reasons I went, like I again, like it's complicated. It's not like you just go for one reason, but
Yes.
another
Yeah.
one is like I didn't really think I was a writer. Like I was like I
Hmm.
needed to have an MFA to prove to people that I was
Yes.
a writer, which you don't
Yeah.
need that. Like if you write
Hmm.
stories, you are a
Yep.
writer.
Yeah.
End of story.
Well, and, I don't know about other programs, but my undergraduate really did not prepare me at all for the like other side of writing. So they focus very much on the page, but then I had no knowledge of agenting, of submitting, of finding journals, of larger
Hmm.
conferences, of anything. And even though our graduate program didn't do a ton of that, we had an agent from Grey Wolf Press come and talk to us when I was there. Um, we hosted AWP when I was there. And
Really? That's cool.
yeah. And so like it really did, even though it didn't give me as much as I would have liked, it still very much opened my world to the greater world of writing. It really opened that door for me.
Yeah, I think same was true for my when I was in the program. We didn't really have a
Hmm.
lot of, I think we had maybe like one
Hmm.
agent come talk to us.
Same. Hmm.
And the most info I got was when like the last day of the residency where like the teachers were always like,
Hmm.
I don't really want to be in the classroom today. So let's like
Yeah.
find a spot and sit in a circle and you can
Uh-huh.
just talk.
Yeah.
Those were the days I learned the most about
Yeah.
what goes on
Yeah.
in the
Let's
publishing
go
world
over to
because
Oxford Exchange and get a coffee.
yeah. Well, so Jess took us to like this like little like Colombian coffee place or
Hmm.
something like that, and it was a little
That's
little bistro.
nice.
It was very cute. Like it was w
Yeah.
in walking distance.
Yeah.
And we had like they had pastries and stuff, and then
I think Jason took us to pizza, honestly. I'm pretty sure we all went to pizza with
that's
him.
funny.
Yeah.
They yeah, and it was a really cute like
Hmm.
little Spanish
Yeah.
bistro or
Yeah.
something. I can't remember.
Well, it's very much, I think, even though we were some of the youngest in the program, I mean, I think I was 24 when I was there, somewhere in there. Um, it still very much was adults talking to other adults, whereas in the
Hmm.
undergraduate program, it was an adult talking to a student, to, essentially a child. Even my senior year, by that point, I had a couple of teachers who talked to me like I was an adult. But I think at the university level, sometimes it's hard. They still see that 18-year-old, that came in freshman year.
Yeah.
And I think that grad school, kind of levels the playing field a little bit. And again, it was worth it for me for the sense of validation in my writing. And we've talked about it before. I am not a great like self-promoter. And I don't know that I would have had like the chutzpah to research like journals and conferences and go by myself or to pursue my writing without the confidence that the graduate program instilled in me. And if you have that confidence already, if you have that go-getter like salesperson mentality, I sometimes you don't need grad school. Like it's not a
Yeah.
necessity.
So I'm gonna break this veneer a little bit that we've
Hmm.
built up because I want to like tell you guys something
Hmm.
as an asshole that sometimes going to grad school is seeing other people reading their
Hmm.
writing and seeing them succeed, and you're like, well,
Yeah.
damn, if they can get published, all right,
That's true. That's
certainly,
yes.
certainly I can.
Yeah,
And
well, I
that
feel
kind
that
of
way just
like
reading other books sometimes.
right. Well, there's that too, but that
Yeah.
just seeing like a student
Hmm.
that like you've read their work and you're like, this is really bad. And then
Hmm.
them like get up
Yeah.
and be really cocky about their writing and they're like, I've been
Yeah.
published in 10 journals. And you're
Uh-huh.
like, and I was
How?
like, that's it. Today I'm going and I'm going to submit to 80 journals because what the
Yeah.
heck? How are you published?
Yeah.
And just kind
Yes.
of realizing that it is kind of just about that tenacity. Like this
Hmm.
person was just going and submitting their stuff, and there is
Hmm.
an audience for your work, even if you're reading their
Yeah.
work and you're like, so
Yeah.
there's that aspect of it too, because I know that a lot of us writers, we like to pretend like we're really like just nice and wonderful, but we
Yeah.
all have that like big ego streak. I think we all
Hmm.
do.
Yeah,
So I
absolutely.
wanted to be honest with you guys.
Yeah.
So there's that
No,
too.
I agree with that, but I also think that there's something to be said for the program helps build confidence. We would have an
Yes.
open mic night every single semester, and I
We didn't.
forced myself. Oh, I'm so sad you didn't get to go to the same program that I went to. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Even though it was the same school, like it was not the
It was
same.
different. It
But
was very different. Yeah.
every single semester I would make myself stand in front of a room of strangers basically and read because I am uncomfortable in that situation. And I know that someday, hopefully, my book gets published. I'm gonna have to be in that situation again. And so just having that confidence built there, it's something I don't think I would have been able to get if I
Yeah,
had not gone to grad school.
totally. And we did one open mic, but it
Hmm.
was at, like it was a bunch of students got together and made it
Oh,
happen.
okay.
And there was
Gotcha.
like 8 of us, and
Mm-hmm.
we went into like the Spartan Club, which was
Mm-hmm.
closed, and we just kind of like ad hoc went in there, and
Gotcha.
there was chairs, and we sat around, and then somebody just stood
Mm-hmm.
in the middle and read, and that was our open mic night. It was literally 8
Gotcha.
people, and 2 of those people, one of them
Mm-hmm.
was Josh, my boyfriend at the time, now
Oh.
now husband, and
Uh-huh.
then my other friend's boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
2 of those people weren't even students at the program.
That's wild to me. I mean, again, it's just, it really shows. So by the time that you joined the program, the person who was running it had to step aside because they had published a book and were going on a tour to promote it and whatever else. And it was just kind of too much for them. You know, when I was there, Erica made sure that we had an open mic night and like there was catering through the university with like
Yeah.
tapas and stuff like, I mean, it was a real thing. And then when she went on sabbatical and subsequently left, I feel like you guys were kind of left with somebody who did not take the program as seriously as they should have, even though they were one of the founding members of the program.
Yes. Like I don't know, maybe he just had a different relationship with the
Hmm.
program, but I told him like my cohort, we had like our mentor was not a good mentor for us. When we
Hmm.
started, she basically said that she didn't
Yeah.
think that genre writers were worthy, and
Hmm.
then like she didn't think that that was really writing or good writing, and
Hmm.
that was how she started it. And all of us were genre writers, so we went to the director,
Hmm.
and he just shrugged and he's like, "What do you want me to do about it?"
Hmm.
And that was just wild to me because I feel like Erica would have
Hmm.
been like,
Well, Erica spent so much time putting the right students with the right mentor. And even though I had one mentor who I didn't necessarily jive with, as far as like when it came to my writing,
yeah,
they were somebody who I respected so deeply when it came to like the overall premise of publishing
yes,
and like the structure of things that it was almost like one of those like lessons I had to learn kind of
yes,
moments, you know?
sure.
And it it just I feel like you have to if you decide to go to grad school, you have to find a program that is going to care about your writing as much as you do.
Hmm.
And it's hard because sometimes you don't always know that going in. I did not know what to expect from my program going in. You were under a false narrative of what to expect going in because the program had changed so much. So I would highly, highly recommend to anybody who's looking to apply to grad school. To see if you can do a tour of the facility. If you can talk to students who are currently enrolled in the program and see what their feedback is, see how long the program has been established, and
Hmm.
see what the undergraduate program looks like there. Because I feel like a lot of times, you know, I had a fantastic undergraduate experience at Florida State University,
Yeah.
and they have one of the top creative writing master's programs in the country. And I would have loved to get into that program. It didn't happen, unfortunately. But it's been around for a very long time. It has a great reputation. Like, I didn't take the time to research as well as I maybe should have because I was so desperate to get in somewhere. And I really feel like it's the same story with like agenting. Like it
Hmm.
was a really good lesson for me to learn when it comes to agenting of my program absolutely gave me a leg up. It gave me skills. It helped my writing. But overall, it was not a lifelong fit for me. And, I'm glad that I did it. I'm glad that I went when I did, though.
Yeah.
Um,
That I
yeah.
would like, the advice I'd like to give is a lesson I did not learn until after the fact was
Hmm.
I had complained about my mentor immediately.
Hmm.
And then when I was met with, well, what am I gonna do about it?
Yeah.
I I relented and was like, okay, I'll just tough it
Hmm.
out. And I had a
Yeah.
horrible semester. And
Hmm.
that was not fair to me because
Hmm.
I'd spent a lot of money on this program and I
Yeah.
deserved to have a mentor who supported
Hmm.
me and wanted to help me learn as a writer.
Yes.
And this person did not take me seriously. They didn't even
Hmm.
try. And
Hmm.
they really just did not think I was a good writer at all. And you cannot have you can't be a good teacher if you like go in thinking
Hmm.
like I don't like this writer,
Hmm.
I'm just going to. You have to put that aside, and this person
Hmm.
didn't. I should have fought for myself. I should have said,
Hmm.
Give me a different mentor," but I didn't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
learn that lesson. You have every right to fight
Hmm.
for that.
Yeah, it's definitely an exercise in advocacy, not just for your writing, but for your education.
Yes. You're spending
I
a lot of
wish,
money on these programs.
right. I wish that I had advocated harder for asking questions and pushing a little bit more about like, what do I do now? How do I submit? How do I find an agent? How do I find a literary journal? How do, you know, um, and I think that that information would have been readily available if I had just asked for it.
Yeah.
But I kept waiting for the program to give me what I thought it was supposed to give me, that I was not proactive in pursuing that knowledge.
Yeah. I ultimately do not regret the program. I
Hmm.
do regret my last semester.
Yeah.
That last semester broke
Hmm.
me, and I didn't write for a
Hmm.
year because I felt like
Hmm.
I was a terrible writer and I should just give up.
Hmm.
But then, like, circling around and like remembering the first three
Hmm.
semesters I had and trying to
Yeah.
hold on to that, and just kind of acknowledging the fact that my last mentor was a terrible mentor
Yeah.
and just learning to like process that. But I don't
Hmm.
regret the program. I
Hmm.
learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about my writing.
Hmm.
And I learned the really hard lesson of learning how to stand up for yourself and believe in yourself regardless of what other people might be saying.
Yeah. I also want to say, I think that it is incredibly common um, to hear, like, oh no, you can't go into academia if you're pursuing something creative because it's just going to give you burnout. And I do think that that can be very true. I know that you, obviously, because of your bad experience, didn't write for a year. I didn't write for a year because I had just been so overwhelmed by the amount of work towards the very end of the semester and like getting my thesis together and like trying to edit it and all of that, it was absolutely overwhelming. Um, but I still think that it's worth it because I think I think that burnout is going to happen with all creative pursuits, no matter what. And so it really just depends on what you're getting back out of it. Um, and I think the idea that academics can't help in creative work is crazy to me. Like
Yeah.
it just doesn't make any sense. But like I was talking to people about possibly pursuing a doctorate after our master's program. And creative writing is a terminal degree for a master's program. However, there are new doctorate programs for it or a doctorate in English. And again, since I love school so much, it was something that I really heavily considered. And the number of people that said to me, "Oh my God, don't do it. It will crush your creativity. It will destroy,
Huh.
your love
Yeah.
of writing
Heard
and
that too.
whatever else." Yeah, that it really scared me away from it. And I want our listeners to know, like, if you want to do this, you should do it. Like, if you have the passion to be a writer, you are always going to have that passion. Like, you you have to be able to fuel your own tank, you know?
Yes.
You can't be going to this program hoping that it will give you fuel. It will give you tools, but you have to be able to fuel your own tank.
Yeah. Exactly. It's one of the four
Yeah.
pillars of being a writer,
Hmm. Yeah.
as Jason Ockert talked about.
I know. I love that man. Yeah. So I just, and again, I'm just thinking about the mentors that it gave us, and like they were really the heart of the program,
They
were the
really were.
mentors.
Yes.
And if I had had different mentors, I think I would have had a really different experience. And I feel so lucky to have had the mentors that I had and to have gotten the feedback that I got. And if I had gone to a different university, I could have had lectures and structure and all those things that I thought I wanted. But if the teachers didn't believe in me, or if the mentors that I was assigned, didn't talk to me like I was an adult and a human or whatever, then it would have been just as useless. So, like, it is about the program, but there's also an element of luck when it comes to your
There's
teachers and
there's
your mentors.
That's true. That really is
Yeah.
true. I have to say though, I do want to like talk about how I talk about my last semester was really painful because my mentor
Hmm.
just did not believe in me. But there
Hmm.
was a happy note.
Yeah.
My second reader
Hmm.
was Jeff Parker.
Oh.
So the man who had started the program, the man I had an
Hmm.
independent study with, with,
Mm-hmm.
I asked him to be my second reader. And
Mm.
when I read his comments on my
Mm.
master's thesis, I cried because it was so,
Oh,
believed in me and he saw the good
yeah.
in my writing. And so like
Mm-hmm.
after the horrible semester I had, he was
Mm-hmm.
like I was about to give up, but those
Yeah.
comments from Jeff Parker on my master's thesis left a little bit of hope
Oh,
buried
that's so
somewhere in my
nice.
heart. So I just wanted to like
Yeah.
say
I
that.
mean, those mentors, they make all the difference in
Too.
our belief in ourselves, in our writing, and in all of it. And I'll never forget. So Karina was my second reader, and when I asked her to be my second reader, she said, "What do you write?" And I said, like normal fiction, like everyday, like boring, like just about people's lives." And she looks at me and goes, "Sweetheart, that's called literary fiction." And I was like, "Oh, that sounds way better. I've been calling it boring fiction because I don't know. Like, it's not sci-fi fantasy, it's not romance, it's not, all of these like genres." And having her say that was really like it
Giving it a
almost
name. Yeah.
well, it almost felt like I had been like diagnosed finally. Like, oh, this is what
That's
I'm dealing
that's the
with. I
problem. Yeah.
understand this. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Um, but yeah, so it's a really complicated relationship. I feel like our listeners have heard us be like, oh, this was wrong and that was wrong and this is but like it really was overall a really good experience. And it's
Really
hard
was.
because it's this love-hate relationship
Totally.
of the value that we got out of it versus the program itself. And I
Yeah.
think that that would probably be true for any program. And like, I'm literally realizing this as the words are coming out of my mouth. But like, as much as I say, I kind of wish I had done a different program, I know I would have had complaints about any other program that I decided to do. You
It's
know what I
true.
mean? Um, and so it's hard because there's not going to be a perfect program that's going to give you
Yeah.
everything you're looking for.
You know what expression I hate
Hmm.
so much?
Hmm.
The grass isn't always greener on the other side.
Yeah.
Sometimes the grass
Hmm.
is just different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes it's just not that awful St. Augustine grass that we have everywhere. Sometimes it's
Hmm.
that nice soft grass they have in Pennsylvania. I don't know what it's
Hmm.
called. You
Uh,
just don't,
Bluegrass, maybe. I don't
it's
know.
so nice. Like it's soft to my feet. I don't
Yeah.
like burst into
Hmm.
hives like I do with
Hmm.
the St. Augustine
Yeah.
grass here. But
Hmm.
it's there's gonna be grass on the other side. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
greener, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just different. So
Yeah.
don't let that stop you. Like, well, maybe I won't have a good
Hmm.
experience, or
Hmm.
just do what you know is what you feel in your heart is the right thing to do for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I want to be sure to say like we both really benefited from having a graduate program. It was something that
Yes.
both of us needed in our lives and that
This
we needed for our
podcast
writing.
would not exist.
It would not. It would not. I would never have forced you to be my friend.
We would have never met.
We would have never met. That's a sad world to think about. Mm. But the bigger point being like if it's not right for you, don't fucking do it. Don't go to grad school. Like you don't
Don't feel
have
pressured,
to.
right?
No, don't feel pressured about it. Find other avenues like listening to this podcast, like joining a writing group, or any of those other ways to focus on your writing. You and I did it because we're both big old nerds that needed somebody to give us an A plus.
Hell
Like,
yeah.
you know, some other people might not need that, and that's amazing for them.
Good for that. I could never be me. It could never be me.
Could never be me. No, I need that sticker on my paper saying "Good job."
I know. So much.
Oh my gosh,
So much.
I live for that check
I
mark.
live for that. Oh, yes.
But yeah, any last thoughts on grad school, on our program, on mentors, anything like that?
No, I think we've covered it. And
Hmm.
again, I do want to stress that it is not necessary to get an MFA.
Hmm.
I do not think that I'm better because I have an MFA. I don't like
Yeah.
there's no,
Sometimes I
I
think I'm worse.
right, but like by people like I've had friends who have joined our writing group and they're like, "Well, I don't have an MFA, so I'm not like
Yeah.
really a writer like you are." And I'm like,
Hmm.
it doesn't matter. It's just it's just a
Exactly.
piece of paper at the end of the day. I
Exactly.
got some
Yes.
experience, but I don't see myself as like, oh
Hmm.
well. you didn't go to grad school, so you don't understand narrative the way I do. It's
Right.
not like that. It's
Exactly.
really not like that.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Basically, like I
Yes.
was clueless. I grabbed a life raft
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's
and I'm
exactly what it
like
is.
just barely keeping above water.
Yep. And I'm super happy with the skills that it gave me, but there's still so much that I don't know about that I am trying to learn
Yeah.
that like is I think just part of being a writer. And when it comes down to the core of it, like even talking to the last person that we just interviewed, like little things like learning how to live with rejection, grad school's not going to teach you. Learning how to edit your work is a great skill that grad school can give you, but learning how to take feedback from beta readers is something that you have to practice and get used to, no matter what setting you do it in. So, like, there are inherent values in going to a program of some sort, whether it's a writer's retreat, a conference, grad school, whatever. And then there's some stuff that you just have to learn on your own, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Sucks.
Sucks. I think
Hard, man.
I'm more impressed by people who don't do an MFA program and
Oh
they're
yeah.
like
Oh yeah.
like Kristen Hermel's like, I don't know, I just read some books, made a map of it, and
Dude.
then wrote a book. Like, oh,
Yes. Yes.
what?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Like learning how to analyze a book like that on your own is so impressive to me. Like I'm sitting
Agreed.
here about to write my third novel and I'm like, I should probably learn how to outline. Like that might be useful for me to figure out. I know. Don't even get that look on your face. I know you're excited. Yes, I'm gonna
Join us.
try to be a
Join
planner.
us.
I'm gonna try.
One of us. One of us. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you need any help, let me know.
Okay, I will. I
I'll
promise.
be happy to plan it for you.
Oh my God, that would be amazing. If you could do that and I can just do the creative writing, that'd be my dream. I'm Abigail,
And I'm Maddie, and this has been
two writers.
Many Wrongs.